start out with the AFC South. We're gonna start off with Indianapolis Colts. We know Corey is a Colts fan, so
I got pretty excited when going through this because I am excited for this season. So I apologize if I am long-winded on Indianapolis, but it will be a very thorough breakdown of this roster.
cool.
When it comes to coaching, you guys know I love me some Frank Reich. I am a massive fan of his aggressiveness as a head coach, his willingness to go for it on fourth down. Just when it comes to both attitude and trying to win a football game, and statistically, it makes sense and it gives your team a better chance to win. He's also a guy that's gotten the best out of his quarterbacks in Indianapolis. And I'll say any team that has a different starting quarterback in week one for 6 straight seasons, they're likely picking at the top of the draft every single year. So the fact that Frank Reich has been even anywhere close to the playoffs with all of that turnover at the most important position in football is really impressive, and I think says a lot for him. Offensively, I think they've improved at almost every level of the offense. Obviously, I think Matt Ryan is a huge upgrade at quarterback. From day one, it was pretty clear that his leadership in that locker room was a night and day difference to last season. And his teammates took notice very, very quickly. I think there should be a little more consistency out of Matt Ryan. And I think you'll have a situation where the head coach just trusts his quarterback a little bit more than last season. In the backfield, JT is still JT. I mean, he's going at the top of fantasy football drafts. And while I think he could actually end up seeing fewer touches this season than he did last, I think the offense overall will end up being more successful just because they won't need to rely on Taylor as much as they did last season. Naheem Hines is poised for a much bigger role this year, both coming out of the backfield as a receiver and lining up as a receiver in the offense to start. And I think adding Phillip Lindsay as their running back 3 provides some very quality depth. I've long been a fan of Phillip Lindsay. I love his running style. So having him as kind of an insurance guy and a guy that can spell your backs for a couple of snaps a game is some pretty valuable depth. Across the offensive line, they did lose 2 starters from last year. But honestly, I think Matt Pryor at left tackle, his floor is Eric Fisher from last year. And I think he exceeds that. Eric Fisher, I think, really struggled coming off the Achilles. I think Matt Pryor has the talent to play as good as Fisher did, but also better. I think it was a really, really solid pickup for the Colts last year, just before cutdowns. And I think he could provide some pretty quality play for them at the left tackle spot. And I think Danny Pinter just slides into the right guard starting spots and replacing Mark Lewinsky, and they just don't miss a beat there, honestly. And I will also say, though, that it's pretty big that both Braden Smith and Quentin Nelson are healthy at this point in the season. Both of them dealt with injuries all of last season. They both didn't play up to their standards. So I think both of those guys being healthy to start out the season means that the offensive line as a whole should look better going into the year. At the receiving core, Michael Pittman looks fantastic in training camp right now. His rapport with Matt Ryan has been really good. And I think he shows out as a legit number 1 wide receiver in the NFL this season. Alec Pierce, the rookie from Cincinnati, has been really impressive in camp so far too. One thing that rookie receivers struggle with coming into the league is press coverage, especially because of spread offenses in college. They just don't see it a ton. The Colts threw Pierce into the deep end with putting Stephon Gilmore on him for a lot of training camp. And his ability to shake off of press as a rookie is really impressive. He spent a lot of time working with new wide receiver coach and future Hall of Famer Reggie Wayne, and the work has showed. And I think Pittman has also commented that Pierce is a lot further ahead as a rookie than he was. And I'll say I think the receiving depth should be better as well. Fingers crossed that Paris Campbell stays healthy. I know that's been said for 3 years now, going into year 4. But if he can stay on the field for most of the year, I think he adds an element to this offense that they've missed the last couple of seasons. He's flashed in camp, but the health just remains a question mark. And they've got some young guys in Ashton Doolin, Mike Strawn, Desmond Patman that are rounding out the roster that if any one of those guys can take a step forward and really produce for them, I think it can negate the need to bring in a vet like T.Y. Hilton. They also have Kiki Cutie that's potentially going to make the 53-man roster as a wide receiver 5. And I think he could provide some quality depth for them too. The only position that they're really potentially taking a step back for is tight end. Jack Doyle retiring was a really big loss. He wasn't the fastest, he wasn't the strongest, but he did everything, and he was just reliable. He was, every quarterback that had him, he was their favorite guy. So having to replace him with Mo Alley Cox, Mo's going to have to take a really big step forward in his progression. And it really hurts rookie Drew Ogletree, 6th round pick, tore his ACL last week, and he was having a very good camp. He had put himself ahead of Jelani Woods on the depth chart, was flashing daily. So it sucks to see him go down. But it adds some pressure on Kylan Granson and Jelani Woods to produce. But I think Frank Reich is a good enough offensive mind to be able to kind of coach around that with the younger guys in the tight end room. But everywhere else across the roster on that offense, I think they've taken a step forward. Defensively, I think the defense ends up being better than last year as well. Matt Eberflus was a good defensive coordinator. He took the defense being pretty awful when Frank Reich came in to being a solid unit. But I think they hit their ceiling with Matt Eberflus. For me, he was a guy that just always seemed a bit slow to adjust when he needed to. I think Gus Bradley's system is pretty simple, much like Eberflus's was, but I think Bradley is more willing to change things up as needed. The players have seemed to gravitate towards Bradley. Everybody loves him. And I think a fresh voice in the defensive coaching staff as DC will be a much needed change. Possibly the biggest addition to this defense was the trade for Yannick Ngakoue. DeForest Buckner is an all-pro defensive tackle. Grover Stewart has been a solid guy in the middle, but Buckner in his time in Indianapolis has never had a consistent edge rush, and Yannick Ngakoue provides that. Looking at Ngakoue's numbers, it's kind of insane seeing the fact that he has bounced around the league the way he has the last 3 years. It makes no sense to me. Seeing how Ngakoue has warmed to Indianapolis off the field as well, and some of the stuff he's doing, it makes no sense how he hasn't found a home yet. But I really hope he has a long-term home in Indianapolis. Kwity Paye had a solid rookie campaign, and he's going to need to take a jump on the opposite side of Ngakoue. But I think he also benefits from having a legitimate edge rusher to kind of take some pressure off of his shoulders. Their defensive line depth is a bit young, so they're banking pretty hard on youth, but I think the depth can come around by the end of the season and provide some quality snaps for them. I think their linebacking core is one of the best in the NFL between Shaq Leonard and Bobby Okereke. Leonard is coming off of back surgery still. I don't think he's going to be ready to go week 1, but Franklin's filled in pretty well for him in camp so far. So I think Franklin will be able to provide, good enough play until Shaquille Leonard is healthy. And
that's Darius Leonard, guys.
Yes.
Just say his correct real name.
In the offseason, Leonard came out and said that he was always Shaquille Leonard as a kid. In college, they just started calling him Darius because it's his actual first name. He just never corrected anyone. So I guess he's figured after 3-4 all-pro teams, he can finally correct people on his name. But for the secondary in Indianapolis, I do think losing Rock Ya-Sin does hurt a little bit. Well, it sucks. More so than hurts. Rock struggled his first 2 years, but I think he really turned a corner last year. He played some really consistent football for them. And I think it'll be a solid pickup for the Raiders. but the Colts replaced him with Stephon Gilmore. So it's really hard to say that, they're losing anything there because Stephon Gilmore has looked really good in camp so far. I don't think he's the type of guy that's going to put up like the defensive player of the year season, but he's going to, I think, be really good for them. You still got Kenny Moore on the opposite side. And I think Isaiah Rodgers has speed. He's been a good special teams guy for him, but when he sees the field as a cornerback, he just finds the football. And I mean, that's all you ask for as a corner. So I think they've got some concerns at the depth at cornerback behind Rodgers and Faison, but hopefully they don't have to rely on that depth. And safeties, Julian Blackmon is coming off an Achilles injury. I don't say this lightly, but the guy was flying around like Bob Sanders last year before he got hurt. He was a really impressive safety for him. He's looked healthy coming off that Achilles, which is surprising because he injured it in October of last year. But he also, coming out of his last year at college, was coming off a knee injury and came back quickly from that too. So he just, maybe one of those guys that can get healthy quick.
Yeah.
And opposite him, they brought in Rodney McLeod, the veteran from this area, actually, to potentially start. But rookie Nick Cross out of Maryland has just flashed consistently in training camp. And I think Cross is going to win the starting job day one. And I think he can end up being a steal from the third round in this draft. Overall, again, I'll say I think the Colts just got better at basically every position on the roster this offseason. I think Matt Ryan brings a chance for consistency at the quarterback position that they haven't had for some time. Yeah, I know he's 37 now, but he says physically he feels very good. He's taking care of his body, and he says that he's more likely to play 6 years than he would be to play one more year. I think that Rigoberto Sanchez tearing his Achilles yesterday or 2 days ago is going to hurt. You don't talk about punters often, but when you have a guy like Sanchez that was phenomenal at pinning teams inside the 20 and not getting touchbacks, it's a weapon. And losing that is definitely going to hurt the special teams unit because on top of that, he's also their holder. And as long as he's been a holder, they've never had to worry about a bad snap for that. So, that sucks. But I think on the whole, this roster is better. Objective one for this team is going to be win the South. They haven't done it for a while. And it starts with getting 2 losing streaks taken care of right off the bat. They haven't won in week 1. Since they beat the Oakland Raiders and quarterback Terrell Pryor. And
how long ago was that?
I think it was 2013. It's been a long time since they won a week 1 football game.
Wow.
And they're going to Houston week 1. You got to win that game. They go to Jacksonville week 2, where they haven't won in 6 years and was the infamous debacle last game of the season last year.
And it's in Jacksonville.
Yep, in Jacksonville.
Yep.
You have to win that game to set the tone. Especially because you get the Chiefs, the Titans, and the Broncos your next 3 games. But I think if they can get off to a solid start, they've got the best roster in the division. I think they can make the playoffs, host a playoff game, and come playoff time, I think they could be poised to make a bit of a run. I have them at 12-5, and I think they win the AFC South.
Whoa, 12-5. All right. Craig of the Colts.
It's hard to follow that up, but Frank Wright, he's one of the better coaches in the NFL to me. He's had some really good veteran quarterbacks, Phillip Rivers, Andrew Luck. Now he gets Matt. I mean, even Carson Wentz. But I think he's going to do this is pretty much like I would say his best chance to win his NFC South or the AFC South. everything going on around him, with everything going on with the Titans and the other two teams in the division, like this is pretty much his best shot. So I think this is the year that he finally gets it done. So Matt Ryan, I've seen him for years, and he's always been a really good quarterback, a really solid quarterback. The last couple of years, at least, he hasn't really had the talent around him to do anything. Like his stats last year, they weren't good. He wasn't very mobile either. But I think going to Indianapolis could be like a rejuvenation type of year for him. So something different is he gets to go and be with a better team that's going to put him in position to basically have a playoff run, something that he wasn't going to get in Atlanta going forward. So I think the sky's the limit for him in Indianapolis. Like Corey said, he could stay he said he wanted to play another 6 years, possibly. So we'll see. Even though he's up there in age, you see obviously Aaron Rodgers and you see Tom Brady, they're still throwing the ball great at their in their, well, Aaron Rodgers is late 30s and Tom Brady is 45. So and I think going from a dome to a dome is going to help him out as well. So he doesn't really, and then he plays the Texans, who are in the dome. Jacksonville's in Florida, so it's not cold there. I guess the only thing he has to worry about, kind of like he was in the NFC South, where the only cold team he had to play pretty much was Carolina. And Carolina's close to Tennessee. So, I mean, the weather should be kind of similar, so he should be used to that, basically. So I see a really good year for Matt Ryan, who I've been obviously getting in fantasy late as my backup. But, I think he's going to have a really good year. The running backs, I mean, Jonathan Taylor had an amazing season last year. I kind of expect something similar. I think his touches probably will go down, but I think he's probably he can still produce at the same rate for the most part, in my mind. I don't think he's going to have a big drop off. I think he's not going to probably have the same yardage that he had last year, or maybe even the same touchdowns. But I think he's definitely worthy of at least the number one, possibly number two spot in fantasy. And I think he's going to have a really good year for the Colts this year again. Hines is a really good pass catching back. I think he's going to work well with this offensive unit. I think he's going to fit in well with the passing game. I expect between like a guy like him to a guy like J.D. McKissick, a guy that can come in and just catch the ball out of the backfield and make plays. I like that for Nyheim Hines. I think I've been getting, well, at least in fantasy, I've been getting him as well. So I think he's going to be pivotal, for this team going forward. Michael Pittman, I think has top 10 talent. He's only 24, so I mean, he still has a ways to go as far as his playing career. But I mean, he has top 10 potential, and I just think he needed a really good wide receiver on the side of him, like a really good number two. I think maybe Alec Pierce could be that number two. Now with Ty gone, and no clue what's going to happen with Campbell. Still waiting for him to emerge and step up into that number two spot. But I think if he doesn't do it, then I think Pierce is more than capable of stepping up into that spot. And I think Pittman, with Pittman having Matt Ryan, I think it's going to be like Matt Ryan to Julio Jones type of chemistry or connection there, or Calvin Ridley type thing going on there. So I think Matt Ryan with Pittman is going to work very, very well. Mo Ali Cox in the tight end spot. I think he's a solid tight end. Probably not going to look for him to do too much out there as far as pass catching the ball, but I think he could be a reliable pass catcher, reliable safety net for Matt Ryan. The offensive line is one of the best. They got to be like top 5 offensive lines, definitely top 10 at worst offensive lines in the league. I know they lost Fisher, and he had a down year last year compared to what he was doing prior. But I think obviously with Quentin Nelson, one of the better guards in the league, you have Ryan Kelly. He's a really good center. Matt Pryor, left tackle. So this offensive line should be poised again to making holes for Jonathan Taylor and protecting Matt Ryan, which is key. The defensive line, and like this is another top unit. I think Kwity Paye, he's coming off his rookie year. It's going to be a second season. Forrest Buckner, goes without saying, like he's amazing. In Ndakwe, is that how you say his last name? He was the Raiders last year. Now he's with the Colts. They traded the cornerback Rock Ya-Sin for him. He was involved in the trade basically. So, but that defensive line gets beefed up. So the defensive line should be a lot more improved than it was last year. And I thought it was really good last year. So they're not taking any steps back there. It's like they're kind of going all in this year, and rightfully so, because the division is easily theirs. Unless injuries happen or whatever it is, but their linebackers, Leonard to me, he's the best linebacker in the NFL. How you say it? Bobby, what's his name? How you say his name?
Bobby Okereke.
Bobby Okereke.
I think he's a really good linebacker as well. He's definitely poised to have a really good year again. Franklin, I think with at least until Leonard comes back, I think he's going to step in and be that other really good linebacker that they need, providing leadership. So I don't really see, even with Leonard out, I don't really see too much of a drop off there. But with Leonard out, obviously they're not the same. But it's only a matter of time before he comes back and is the same player that he was a few years ago. The secondary, Kenny Moore on one side, Stephon Gilmore on the other side. You lose Rock Ya-Sin, but you get Stephon Gilmore, who, I wish he had stayed in Carolina, but it is what it is. He didn't play much last year, but he was impactful for the time that he was on the field. I guess the only thing hurting him, his age, but he's only 31, but he's still playing like he's in his 20s. So I expect big things out of those two guys as well as the safeties. Cross, Corey mentioned that he's leapfrog Roddy McLeod.
Mm-hmm.
Is that how you say his name?
Yep.
He leapfrogged him so far in practice and in preseason and things like that. So as a rookie third round pick, you can't ask much more out of one of your draft picks to come in and step up and surpass a veteran. So I I've been liking the Colts for the last couple of years. I think I picked them the last like 2 or 3 years, and they just haven't. But I got to pick them again because I don't believe in any of the other 3 teams. So I think the Colts, I have them at 11-6. I think the worst they'll go is 10-7 if everybody's healthy. So I have them 11-6, and I have them winning the AFC South.
All right, Mo.
We keep this short. Y'all gave great breakdowns. I think they're gonna be motivated. I truly see a team that's gonna be motivated. That last year gave a bad taste in their mouth. You bring in a Matt Ryan who's going to be motivated because people think he done. It's a very talented defense. Always love their defense. Like huge fan of their defense. I just love watching like Colts game and just watching their defense. I just be sitting there like, wow, like brother's a beast. Solid defense. Honestly, because of Tennessee's losses at wide receiver, I think I can see Colts running away with this division because it's like you're not going to. If you become one-dimensional, you're not going to beat the Colts. Like, you're not going to beat the Colts with Derrick Henry that he's going to run the ball 25 times a game. That's just not going to work. Not against the Colts. So I think with them wide receivers taking a downgrade like it has, the Colts not going to let – Gus Bradley ain't going to let a rookie beat him. He ain't going to let no what's his name, Burks or whatever, Alex Burks beat you. That's not going to happen. So I can see Colts easily winning at the highest. I can see him 11, 12 wins, at the worst 10. I'd be kind of disappointed in anything under – 10 wins. I think the only way that happens is like massive injuries. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. We were talking about this earlier, and I kind of see them running away with the division easily. But we're gonna break down quarterback like Corey. Let's go to head coach. I like Frank Wright. He's been pretty solid for them. Actually, he's been to the playoff twice in 4 years. Some could say he should have went last year. So, it was last year. I think he's a good coach. I think he fits Indy's culture. That's it. He's just one of those guys that, as we saw last year on Hard Knocks, he gets a lot of respect and is a great leader. Matt Ryan is another one that's really awesome. Veteran pickup. Colts love veteran quarterbacks, and they seem to luck out. I don't even call it luck. They're a well-oiled run franchise, so that's what most times what franchises do. They even though Andrew Luck retired, they're still able to
I'd
get
say
quality.
luck is a touchy word for quarterbacks, James.
Yeah, luck is. Oh yeah,
Especially
that's
on the
right.
anniversary today of his retirement.
Oh man, yeah. So even after Luck, they've continuously gotten quarterbacks, veteran quarterbacks, and go to the playoffs. And Matt Ryan is saying that, do you want to play 6 more years? It's possible. That's 43. It's very doable. And I could see him fit in with the Colts. That, like Corey said, I guess he's the Colts insider, but I've heard multiple reports say it's like night and day. It's a big difference between him and Carson Wentz. And that matters, especially coming from your quarterback. Your quarterback sets the tone for your team. So, it's a difference because on the other side, Carson Wentz is struggling right now, and Matt Ryan is not. It's the difference, right? So, Jonathan Taylor, once again, great running back. Even though he's going to probably take less carries this year, they still have Naeem Hines, and they still have Philip Lindsay, which is like third string, but I think he's still a quality running back. And Naeem Hines, I think, is like Craig said it, the J.D. McKissick role. I think he's going to play really good, and he's been a phenomenal pass catcher since he's been in the NFL. Receiving core, Michael Pittman has been balling out this camp. Especially, I was reading the training camp notes against the Lions. He won all his one-on-ones on 11 versus 11, and I think 7 versus 7. But he's been playing really good. And that's what you kind of expect of him. Everybody sees the potential, and I think this year he's ready to make the next step, especially with Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan is, I think Corey and Craig said it, where he's one of those quarterbacks that's going to get him the ball consistently. So, and Alex Pierce is turning some heads in camp. So it looks like, he's another example, just like, I'm going to get to him later, Nick Cross, where this isn't, luck or this is a quality franchise that's able to do their jobs and get the right players that fit. And Alex Pierce fits them. The tight end position, I was reading that Drew Ogletree did have a torn ACL. And they said it's going to be 9 months, which they have been a little bit light in the tight end area. So I know that Grayson and Jelani Woods are going to have to step up, but hopefully Mo Alley Cox can stay healthy. And their offensive line is good. Once again, held down. Ryan Kelly, Quentin Nelson, Pinter. We saw these guys, man. We know how they work, man. So, the defensive line is phenomenal. I love Grover Stewart, man. He's a great barbecuer. DeForest Buckner he's an all-pro, probably make the all-pro this year. The way he's trending, it might be a Hall of Famer at this point. He's on that track, because I believe there's like 3 all-pros already out. He's on that track. I don't see him slowing down. And they got their 2 ends are going to be very good. So their defense took a step forward, especially in the pass rushing department, where you have in Yahweh and then you have Kwity Paye. So I think Kwity Paye takes the next jump. As we all see from young pass rushers, they kind of get their groove going, and then by the end of the year, you see the potential. And I feel like he's going to make that turn. And him and Yahweh on the edge, it's just going to be phenomenal. And then you have the linebackers that's going to hold it down. You know, Shaquille Leonard, aka Darius Leonard. He's a phenomenal middle linebacker. Okori.
Okay.
Okereke and Franklin would like to hold it down. And then here's their corners. I know they lost Rocky Sin, but Stephen Gilmore, I mean, once again, you know, and then the drafting of Julian Blackman, if he comes back and he looks like he's on track to play week 1, and then you have Nick Cross, this is just one of those. Once again, man, a good run organization, and I feel like they're going to win the division this year, and I can see him winning. I can see him going 11-6 or 12-5, but it's not going to be like how last year where it's the Titans and the Colts. I just think the Colts are going to establish themselves as the #1 division leader.